Hi, I'm Claire and it's time for my June reading wrap-up, in which I read a pile of books approximately as big as my head. As you know, if you've been following the channel, I started a Harry Potter reread at the beginning of this month. I will be rereading all of the Harry Potter books in time for the end of July, when I have tickets to go and see the Harry Potter play in London. So I'm really excited about that, and because I'm so excited, I'm not only rereading through the Harry Potter series, but I'm making videos about each of the books. I've already read through the first 4 and I've got videos out for the first 3, I think, by the time this airs. So if you'd like to know my thoughts about the Harry Potter series so far, you can check the card right now on the Harry Potter books, or you can see the link in the description below for the Harry Potter reviews playlist. But basically that is what I did for a large part of this month. I read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, this beautiful illustrated edition. If you want to see more of the illustrations, I show off some of them in my Philosopher's Stone video. And then I went through Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And I'm currently listening to the audiobook of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, where Harry does yell a lot. So these have obviously been delightful to read, and I still love them just as much as I loved them the first time that I read them, or the 15th or 50th time that I read them. It's just a pleasure to be doing this reread, and I'm not going to talk about the books too much because you probably already know what Harry Potter is about, and if you want to know more of my thoughts, like I said, there are videos especially about those. So on to the other books that I read this month. First, I read The Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan. This is book 2 in her Memoirs of Lady Trent series. I read the first book, Natural History of Dragons, a few months back, and I really loved it. We follow Isabella, Lady Trent, who recounts in her memoirs how she went on adventures to research the science of dragonology and become a world-renowned dragon naturalist. In the first book, we see her grow up and get married and go to a foreign country on an expedition to research dragons with her husband, and in this one we see her go to a different foreign country on a different dragon research expedition. And it's a really interesting portrayal of the people that she and her research expedition come across, and the dragons that they see, and the different kind of types and breeds of dragons, and kind of a redefining of what constitutes a dragon, what makes an animal particularly belong to the dragon family. Like I said before, this series combines a lot of things that I really love. I like the narration style, the kind of going back and narrating your youth, and I also really love the fact that it's about dragons, because dragons are amazing, and the whole business of studying magic as if it were science is always a big plus for me. I'm really excited to be continuing with this series. I think it's one that I'm going to take at a little bit more of a leisurely pace, because it's not like you absolutely need to jump to the next book when you've finished any one of them, because there's a bit of time in between the adventures that are being recounted. I think there's a few years between the end of the first one and the beginning of this one. Speaking of dragons, I started another reread series. This is one that me and my friend Kay, who's over at Kay Taylor Ray on Twitter, had been talking about for a little while, and then we noticed that Lisa at Over the Effing Rainbow was doing a read along for it, so we decided to tag along, and so now I'm doing a reread of the Temeraire series by Naomi Novik. I mentioned when I was reading Naomi Novik's Uprooted that I'd really enjoyed her Temeraire series, but actually I think I've only read 4 or 5 of the Temeraire books, and I don't actually remember when I stopped reading them or why. I read those something like 5 years ago, and I didn't actually remember a lot of what happened in the books. I just remembered a great fondness for them, and so I thought I would pick up the series again and just reread through the first few, which I remember really loving, and then continuing to the end, because the 9th and final book in the series is being published I think either it's already been published or it's being published very, very shortly. I have read this month Temeraire by Naomi Novik. This book is published as His Majesty's Dragon in the US, so you might have seen it under that title. And also the second book, Throne of Jade. And if you notice the two widely dissimilar covers, that is because those books were originally published under this edition in the UK with beautiful covers by Andrew Davidson, which I really, really loved. I got a couple of the books in this edition, and then I bought Temeraire again because I couldn't find it, and now I'm stuck with this edition, which I don't like as much. Anyway, I'll have to see if I keep the mismatched editions or if I decide that I really want to keep this series and it's worth investing in a beautiful matching set. Enough about the covers, because what's inside them is really lovely, and I think that if you've never read the series, you should definitely give it a try. The series is set in an alternate history version of Britain, and it's set during the Napoleonic Wars, with the main difference being that there are dragons, and the dragons serve in the military alongside men, and they are on each side. So in Britain you have the army and the navy and the aerial corps. At the beginning of the series, our protagonist, Captain Will Lawrence, is a captain in the British Navy, and he takes a French ship prisoner. He takes it as a prize in a naval battle, and then they realize there's a dragon egg in the French ship that they've taken, and the dragon egg is just about to hatch. So that throws all of their plans into disarray, because they're very far from the coast. For England, for the English military that desperately needs more dragons, someone has to put the dragon into harness, and that person ends up, surprise surprise, being our hero, Captain Will Lawrence, and Will becomes the captain of the dragon Temeraire instead of being a naval captain, and it kind of throws his entire life into disarray because it's not a position that's as socially acceptable. But the flip side of that is that now Lawrence is captain to the dragon Temeraire, who is a very rare, intelligent dragon who basically makes it all look completely worth it. In the second book, Throne of Jade, Temeraire and Lawrence have had a few months to adjust to their new lives as captain and dragon fighting for England, and they are getting on really well, except for the fact that it's come out in the first book that Temeraire's egg was a present from the Chinese government to Napoleon, the Emperor of France, and instead he ended up being the dragon of a random British aviator guy, and the Chinese embassy are not so happy about this. So they are in London talking to the Admiralty and asking for the dragon Temeraire to be returned to them, because it turns out he's really rare and valuable, and some of them don't think he should have ever left China in the first place. So we've got Temeraire and Lawrence in a bit of a bind because neither of them will leave the other, and it ends up with Lawrence and Temeraire both traveling together to China to try and resolve the problem. And it's got a lot about the treatment of dragons in various parts of the world and the kind of cultural impact of dragons in society, and it's just this fascinating exploration of how you do the trope of intelligent speaking dragons participating in society in different ways, and it's just fascinating. That is definitely one of the aspects of the series that I remembered liking a lot, and I wasn't disappointed in this. There are a few things about the plot of this one that don't really convince me as much as the first one. Temeraire is my favorite character in those books by far. He's a sweetheart, he's so funny and earnest, and I love Temeraire so much. I remembered loving those books, but I didn't really remember why. But now I remember it was all because Temeraire is such an amazing character. Lawrence is your kind of fairly traditional steampunk / alternate history protagonist who's from a good family but kind of fallen out of grace a little bit, and he's very honorable and he gets himself into trouble because he's too honorable. I say this of this kind of stereotypical character with a lot of love for that archetype, because I have written a character like that in my current novel. I love that archetype, but Temeraire is so refreshing as a character and he's so lovely, and when I think I have 7 more books to read in which Temeraire is a main character, I am so excited because it's a lot of fun. And finally, I read Descender Volume 2, Machine Moon. This is a graphic novel that I really love. It's about this little companion robot, Tim 21, whose job it is to be a friend to a little human boy. His family consists of his mom and Andy, the young boy he's been assigned to be a companion to, and then he is powered down one day and wakes up, or powers up I suppose, some years later on the mining colony that he lived on, with everybody being dead. And basically he has to adjust to this world in which there's been a giant robot uprising some years ago, and everybody has had to flee or has died, and so he knows that Andy's mother's died, but he doesn't know where Andy is, and he's looking for Andy, but at the same time there's definitely people looking for him to kill him because he's a robot that looks like a child, and a lot of people are very threatened by that concept. And if you haven't seen me mention this before, then I absolutely need to show you some of this gorgeous artwork, because that is definitely my favorite part of Descender. I just think it's beautifully done. I'm absolutely loving these watercolor style of illustration. I'm going to show you my favorite panel in this one, because there is a beautiful cover for chapter 4 with this really cool character. And I know I've shown you this in my book haul, so apologies if you're seeing this again, but this lady is just too badass not to show you twice. So that is Descender, and that's a hearty recommendation for me if you like sci-fi and robots and really beautiful graphic novels. But you will be hooked and you will be sad when you read the end of volume 2, because 3 isn't out yet. So that's it. This was my reading wrap up for the month of June. Let me know in the comments below what you've been reading this month, and if you're going to do a Harry Potter reread of your own before the script for Cursed Child comes out at the end of July. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check the sidebar right here for more videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for new videos from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.